Honorable Prime Minister, Warden of St. Thomas's, Principal of Royal, distinguished guests. I consider it a great privilege to have been invited this evening to propose a toast to St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia, a school that has as great an esteem as Royal, and for which we Royalists have the greatest respect and admiration. Gentlemen, it occurs to me that today we are commemorating slightly in advance the 125th anniversary of our cricketing ties between the two schools. It also occurs to me that a major part of those matches would probably have been played in colonial times. And I would therefore like to share with you the perception of an Oxford historian about colonialism and the cricketer. As the text is of an academic nature, I would like to read it to you to ensure that I make no mistakes. And it goes like this. First the hunter, the missionary and the merchant. Next the soldier and the politician. Then the cricketer. That is the history of British colonialism. And of these civilizing influences, the last, namely the cricketer, perhaps be said to do least harm. And gentlemen, I can tell you today, Mr. Cecil Headlam, who was the Oxford historian who wrote that, has not been proved wrong. Gentlemen, we have had the privilege of going to school, that is my era and the one before, at a time when life was far more tranquil than it is today. I think stress and hypertension are almost synonymous with day-to-day living in today's context. And it is therefore no surprise that young Christopher came home one evening and said to his father, I'm not sure from which school he came, whether it's Royal or St. Thomas's, and he said, Dad, can you tell me the difference between irritation, aggravation, and frustration? And the father said, oh, that's quite simple, son. Bring me the telephone book. He turned to a page, picked a number, and said, now you go in and listen in on the extension. The father dialed the number. A man answered on the other line. He said, hello? Is Arthur there? And the man on the other line said, there's no Arthur here. Bang! He turned to his son and said, son, that is irritation. He paused for a few minutes, and he dialed the same number. The same voice answered. And he said, hello, has Arthur come back as yet? And the man on the other side said, I told you there's no Arthur here, and if you ring again, I'll call the police. Bang! He said to the son, that is aggravation. Now he said, let me get on to frustration. He dials the same number. The same man answers, and the father says, hello, this is Arthur here. Have there been any messages for me? Gentlemen, this is, like I said, a very privileged occasion. 125 wonderful years of interaction between Royal and St. Thomas's. And while we have fought the game fiercely, within the rules of the game, of course, on the playing field, the camaraderie that we have enjoyed has been sensational. And I think it's a shining example, not only among schools, but even to the very nation, that we can sit here and have the kind of evening that we have enjoyed so far. But having said that, let us also accept that the realities outside this beautiful environment are contrastingly different. And for that reason, before I move to propose a toast to this prestigious school of St. Thomas's, I would like to take a very short walk down a particular memory lane. And in doing so, I wish to sincerely tell you that it is not my intention to offend anyone. The year was 1965, and at the conclusion of the Royal Thomian, we were invited to see the principal. and told that steps had been taken to initiate reciprocal tours with schools in Jaffna. And as a first step, we were to go out to St. John's over the following weekend to play in a cricket match. So we bundled off in the Yaldevi on the Thursday, arrived to a warm reception, and we played 2 marvelous days of cricket on the Friday and the Saturday before an unprecedented and enthusiastic crowd. We lost the match, but nobody really cared because Jaffna had seen a great game of cricket played to its highest traditions. That night at the closing banquet, the night air was filled with songs in Sinhala, Tamil, and English, with members of the respective teams exercising their vocal cords in solos and duets. The next day, the warmth of the hospitality continued, and when we were escorted to the railway station to be seen off, I can tell you that when the train pulled out of the platform, there was not one dry eye where the Royal College team was concerned. Gentlemen, the point I'm trying to make here is that yes, there was a time when that boy from the north was no different to his counterpart from the south, east, or west. He was just as caring and there was a very good reason for that. The concept of equality was known to the length and breadth of Sri Lanka in the mid-60s. And the commonly and widely spoken language of English made communication so easy. Gentlemen, today, 4 decades later, one of the campaigns on the electioneering platforms is one of equality. Don't you think that's a tragedy? What happened in the ensuing years can only be summed up in one sentence from the memoirs of a man who at one time looked to Sri Lanka as the model for his own country. I refer to none other than Lee Kuan Yew, who summed it up by saying, "On my successive visits from the 17th onwards, I watched a country of great promise go to waste." Gentlemen, I recently attended a funeral where I heard the priest say, "Death humbles us all, because in death we're all equal." And as I left the church, I asked myself the question, why in heaven's name don't we use our God-given intelligence to create that equality while we live without waiting till death imposes it upon us? We have had the privilege to go to 2 of the finest institutions in this country. Institutions that will hold their own with the best in the world. And why are they regarded as the finest institutions in this country? Simply because they taught us time-tested values. Almost before we were knee-high to our teachers, we were taught to differentiate between right and wrong. As we grew older, we were encouraged to emulate the strong, but reminded to protect the weak. We were taught that every right implied a corresponding responsibility. We appreciated that there could never be hope for success in governance, no matter in what field, without accountability. Today, gentlemen, macro journals are being written on this absolutely basic concept that we were taught in our classrooms, flooding the libraries of boardrooms and the management institutes. And I suspect that those responsible for the Turnbull and Cadbury reports must have spent time in the classrooms of St. Thomas's and Royal. And finally, we were made to realize that there could be never hope for life with honor and dignity without integrity. When the late Sir Donald Bradman was once asked, "What is it that you would like to be remembered most for?" his answer was both spontaneous and simple. He said, "My integrity." And when another Australian captain, Greg Chappell, was facing almost extinction from international cricket with 7 successive ducks in a row, and then suddenly he reeled off a series of centuries and was asked what the secret of the transformation was, he said, "I merely went back to my basics." Gentlemen, our basics are not only time-tested, but will have values even when life is propagated on Mars. And I would think that it is time that as responsible citizens representing two of the finest institutions in this country, that it is time that we forget the past and we move forward to give the elected leaders the support that they need. At the same time, have the right to question them on their actions in relation to the values that we have, so that this wonderful country of ours, one of immensely talented people and almost unparalleled natural charm, can at least now move forward to fulfill its potential. In our midst today, we are privileged to have the Honorable Prime Minister. He took the mandate of the people and moved the peace process with a sense of statesman-like commitment that not only inspired confidence but ensured reciprocity. That process, for some reason, has been put on hold. But I'm sure that it is the fervent wish of every patriotic Sri Lankan, every peace-loving citizen, that that process should be put back on course and taken to its logical conclusion. Gentlemen, it is here that I bring the revered institution of St. Thomas's, a school that has stood inflexibly for its high values and standards, a school that has produced some of the most outstanding citizens in this country. May I ask you please to rise and drink a toast. May St. Thomas's flourish in the future, upholding its values and standards as it is in the past. May it continue to grow from strength to strength, and may it also continue to produce for this country, as it had done in the past, the men who can make the difference. Esto Perpetua to St. Thomas's. Thank you, gentlemen.